Live.
Hello, my fellow Federalists, and welcome to the Season 1 finale of SOC Sidebar. My name is Matthew Stanko, and I am the co-founder and president of the Federalist Society at the University of Maryland. Each month, the Federalist Society Student Division, in conjunction with a rotating chapter, hosts a new SOC Sidebar, featuring a judge being interviewed by a student chapter president about that judge's passion, hobby, or interest, and how it relates to the law. I have the honor of being joined tonight by Chief Judge Jennifer Elrod of the Fifth Circuit. On this installment of SOC Sidebar, Chief Judge Elrod and I will be discussing our shared love of Star Wars, Star Trek, and all things space. While she needs no introduction, allow me a moment to introduce Chief Judge Elrod. Jennifer Elrod is the Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. She was nominated to the Fifth Circuit in 2007 and assumed the role of Chief Judge last October. Prior to joining the federal bench, Chief Judge Elrod served as a state court judge in her home state of Texas. Chief Judge Elrod graduated cum laude from Harvard Law School, where she was an active member of the Harvard chapter of the Federalist Society. She clerked for the Honorable Sim Lake in the Southern District of Texas, and before her appointment to the bench, worked in private practice, focusing on civil litigation, antitrust, and employment matters. In addition to her work on the bench, Chief Judge Elrod is actively engaged in the academic and legal community. She currently serves on the board of directors and as jurist in residence at the South Texas College of Law. She is also a member of the board of advisors for the Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy. In addition to all that, Chief Judge Elrod also finds time to serve on the board of the Garland Walker Inn of Courts. And not to spoil a little surprise we have for later in today's episode, but she co-produces their annual CLE musical, which I understand has won multiple national awards. Chief Judge Elrod, we could not be more honored to have you with us tonight.
Thank you, Matthew. It's such a pleasure and treat to be here. Thank you to the University of Maryland, and thank you to Peter Redpath and Brom Katz, and may the force be with you all tonight.
Thank you, and may the force be with you too. Just a quick note for our participants before we jump into questions. At the end of our conversation, we're going to actually open the floor to all of you, to the audience, to ask some questions. In order to do so, you must be logged into Zoom and use the Q&A feature in Zoom to ask your questions. If you type your questions into the question box there, I'll be able to read them aloud to Chief Judge Elrod. Now, without any further ado, let's talk Star Wars. So, Judge Elrod, I mentioned that you grew up in Texas during the space race. What was that like, and how did it shape your interest in space and science fiction?
Well, I remember that we would watch the various space events on television with great interest. We would have occasionally an astronaut come to our schools for some professional day where they would come and talk to us about their adventures. And we also had the privilege of visiting the Johnson Space Center on field trips and things like that. And I grew to love space. I grew to love science fiction. It was always something, it really sparked my imagination. And then we got Star Wars whenever, I think it was in 1977 or so. And I was born in 1966. You can figure out how old I am. And it was just the perfect age to be experiencing all of that, and to get to see that all through the junior high and then the high school, and see the original movies during that time period.
I can only imagine what it was like watching Star Wars when it first came out on the big screen, I understand that you keep some Star Wars memorabilia with you in your chambers. I think, would you mind talking us through what exactly you have there?
Well, there is that's a replica lightsaber that my clerks gave me. Of course, that's a little R2-D2. I have a big R2-D2 at our house. My husband thinks that perhaps we don't need to always keep a big giant R2-D2 at our house, but we do have one. And then there's a Starship Enterprise, and my law clerks also gave me Admiral regalia for Star Trek as well. So I also have a shelf filled with Lord of the Rings memorabilia and other such things. We enjoy our fantasy and science fiction in our chambers.
I think you might just have the coolest chambers in all of the circuit courts. So, tell us a little bit. You mentioned this that you sort of had your first experience with Star Wars when it came out. What exactly was it about Star Wars that first grabbed your attention and brought you into the fold?
Well, the story is terrific. I mean, the droids they make that you care about them. Was a unique thing that Star Wars did. You care about them from the very beginning. Their humor drives the show. The storyline is one of great redemption, um, and not fighting back at all times, but fighting back sometimes and knowing when you should fight and when you shouldn't. And those are hard questions in life. And so, just a tremendous storyline, a great adventure, and awesome special effects.
I can only imagine. I mean, I think some of the later movies, have taken some flack for their special effects, but seeing those special effects in theaters for the first time must have been something,
Yeah.
truly special. Uh, is there like a particular scene or character in Star Wars that you really feel connected to, or is it just the story generally?
Well, given that I'm 4'11", perhaps I do identify with Yoda, although I'm not nearly as wise as he is, and I can't lift spacecraft with just my hands. But I do enjoy Yoda, and in fact, I did embarrass my daughters at one of the Disney parks by wearing a shirt that said "Judge me by my size, do you?" All day long at a Disney park once. And so, yes, I obviously think that Yoda not realizing who someone was by their very appearance, and treating them, with some disdain, how wrong that was, and how things can be different than what they appear. And he has great wisdom, although I have to say, in the later movies, I'm not so sure about some of his wisdom, but that may be just a critique I have of some of the later movies. Period.
I take it then you're primarily a fan of the original trilogy.
I am a fan of the original trilogy now, and I think that part of that's just you become a fan of what you had as a child. I have one of my law clerks, her name is Grace Braun, and she had her birthday just recently, and she went to go see one of the later movies as a that she had enjoyed when she was young, and she was so excited about it. And so I think it's what you grow up with that you like, but I think that there are a lot of plot holes in the later movies, and so I've this is just a personal view, but I don't get some of the things they do, some of the decisions they make, the some of the way some of the things about the force seem inconsistent in some of the movies, and but that's probably a longer discussion. Uh, over than we have time for right now.
I think maybe the largest problem with the prequel trilogy, and I think everyone here would agree, too much focus on trade negotiations and not enough discussion of the judicial system in the Republic.
Yes, there is definitely not enough discussion of the judicial system in Star Wars. I have to say that's one thing, frankly. I think we're going to talk about Star Trek maybe at some point. Star Trek does a better job of having the military tribunals and the various tribunals through it. Star Wars is kind of it's a little bit of a mess in some of these things, but Star Wars is so much fun. I don't know. Matthew, where are you on is Jar Jar Binks a Sith Lord?
This is a great question and something I have definitely gone down the YouTube rabbit hole late at night. I have to say, for my money, I don't think he is. I think he's just a very goofy character. But what do you think, Chief Judge Elrod?
Oh, I don't know. I tend to think that he's pretty goofy, and I haven't spent as many late nights on it or as you probably have. Perhaps I should have. My husband tends to think that he might be a Sith Lord because he's always in just the right time, place, and the right time, and that he nominates Palpatine. He's just right at the right place, and he encourages people to make alliances that end up being very important in the plot line, and who doesn't want to say Darth Jar Jar? I mean, that's pretty cool.
I think what we're learning here is one of your clerks needs to get you a little Darth Jar Jar figurine to join that shelf of yours.
Although he's so annoying. You know, my little brother, who's a fully grown man now at this point, he really loved the Star Wars characters too, and he by that time they had action figures and things, and I remember he had a giant AT-AT and a Millennium Falcon and all these toys and things. So I wasn't in that age where we had all of that, but it was neat to see that in another generation in my household because he's 12 years younger than me. So it's just, I mean, it's great because it just touches so many generations.
It really is an intergenerational thing. I mean, I
And I
was
mean,
first.
how many movies have a holiday, basically? I know it's not an official federal holiday or anything, but it should be. So, uh,
I somebody should write to the president. We might get an executive order on that. Uh, so you said you're primarily a fan of the original trilogy, so I think I have to ask you, are you a Rebels fan or a fan of the Empire, and why?
oh my goodness. Of course, I'm a rebel in that world, and because those are the good guys. I want to be on the side of the good guys. If I had the chance to spend some time with Obi-Wan, I would just relish it. And he was just a consummate good guy. And who doesn't have fun with the Han Solo and Princess Leia? Princess Leia is a very good character, actually, and I have to say, of the things that happened in the later movies, her development was actually a positive thing, and so that was a good that ended up being a good part of the storyline. So she's
Absolutely.
good because she's independent minded, but she's very concerned about the community. And she takes responsibility and she risks herself. And so she's a good leader in a lot of ways. Although I understand there's still some weird decisions that people make along the way.
Well, you know what? On that note, let me ask you, you know, how has Star Wars affected your judicial philosophy? Are there lessons you take from Obi-Wan or Leia or Yoda about, how to be a good judge or what to look for when making these tough decisions?
Well, it's really interesting. I've been doing some talks and some writing in with regard to AI, and we talk about are judges going to be replaced by AI decision makers, and people there is something about having a neutral, more Spock-like, for I'm sorry, I switched the metaphor here. Decision making that you want really logical, analytical reasoning and judicial decision making. But most people tend to prefer some humanity in their decision making, although not in deciding what statutes mean or what the Constitution says, perhaps around the edges and discretion. But I would say that we do want judges who are analytically reasoned and logical, and not judges who will do things based upon their feelings. And so I think the Star Wars metaphor ends at some place because there is all of the feelings and the feel the force, and that's great in a movie, but we want judges to make decisions based upon what the law says.
Would it be fair to say that Star Wars gives you more general lessons for life than specific lessons for a career in the law?
I would think that would be good, especially since they don't really have many statutes and treaties and things. They have many more in Star Trek.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you a hypothetical because I've always wanted to know this, and I don't think I've ever had anyone really as qualified to you as you to ask. You know, being both a Star Wars fan and a federal judge. Um, if the Empire wanted to gain access to like R2D2's memory banks, is that covered under the Fourth Amendment, or is that covered under the Fifth? Is that something you have to get a warrant for, or is that a non-admission thing?
Well, this is an unfortunate part of Star Wars, actually. Well, first of all, they don't have a constitution like we have, and so
Mm.
we're a very special place that we have both a Fourth and a Fifth Amendment, and so yay, yay, our Constitution. And I do carry around my pocket Constitution with me in my purse. And one time I left my purse at the airport in Dallas, and they found my purse because my ID was out of it. I had put it in my pocket, but my pocket Constitution had my name in it. And so that's how they found my purse and got it to me. So you never know how a pocket Constitution will be handy. And that's a good thing that we can all have that written down. But to answer your question, droids are not treated with as sentient beings or human life forms in Star Wars. They're treated very much like property, and so I unfortunately, if you were trying to analogize fourth or fifth, I think that you can figure out how that would go. That's a bad part of Star Wars, frankly, and they're probably beyond the scope of a nice, fun evening conversation. But that's an interesting thing again about Star Trek because they
Mhm.
have the whole data becomes aware, and can he have self-determination, and they have a whole trial on that at one point because they are becoming aware that they're aware that we creatures that are sentient and that can that they should have some self-determination, but self-determination among droids is generally frowned upon in throughout the Star Wars movies.
Well, fair enough. Why don't we talk a little bit about the judicial system in Star Trek then? Because I know you're a fan of that as well. So, you mentioned that episode where Data is on trial and they're trying to determine if he is a piece of property or if he really is, his own sentient life form. Um, I think you probably have more expertise than I. What do you think of the judicial system there? Is that a good way to uphold due process?
Well, it's not a perfect system, but they do have procedures where they're entitled to counsel. There, there is a process. The decision makers are, I think, tend to be somewhat neutral. There is a there is a model of some sort of process in. It's not a perfect model by any means, and they always have trouble with their process when it comes to making decisions about the prime directive. There's a lot of inconsistency there, but there are genuine efforts in the military tribunals that they conduct, and in that trial about Data, there are some efforts, and it's very interesting, and then there are episodes where, that are not actually traditional trials, but like where Q puts humanity on trial and that sort of thing. And so those are not the same types of trials by any means, but there are some more traditional trial features in Star Trek. And I think those are interesting because Star Trek is concerned more with the relationships and things in that way, rather than although the movies do have great special effects, but and who doesn't like some Kirk yelling "Con," and that sort of thing. Uh, I used to ask my law clerks when I would hire them, or would you be a Picard or a Kirk? But I don't ask that anymore because I've found that most law clerks don't know who either Picard or Kirk are. So, Matthew, would you know the answer? Would you rather be a Picard or a Kirk?
Well, I'd certainly rather be a Kirk. I think the the dynamic action and William Shatner's hair have me won over. But
So,
uh,
that's
not
good.
not not to not to criticize Captain Picard's confident bald look at all, but I do. I'm a big fan of Captain Kirk. But what about you, Chief Judge Elrod? Would you rather be Kirk or Picard?
Well, I think it depends if you're saying, as a decision maker who has to mull things over and make wise decisions, I would think you would prefer that I be a Picard and that I wouldn't be impulsive and try to take the lead and do something way outside the box. You want your judges to be to follow the rules, to be careful, to not be adventure seeking in the bench. Those are all bad, considered to be bad traits in judges. So I think I have to go for Picard. And
Fair
plus,
enough.
I drink Earl Grey tea, um, you know, and I
Well,
think Moby Dick is a great book. So anyway, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, on those factors alone, I think you might be the re-embodiment of Captain Picard. No,
I do have more hair.
I think Captain Kirk might be the ultimate judicial activist. So perhaps
Yeah.
not exactly not exactly who we would want on the bench.
No.
Um, let me ask you this: Who, if you could have any job in Starfleet, what job would you want? Would you
Gosh, that's a hard question. I hadn't really thought about that. You know, I I guess it's fun to run that bar where you get to talk to everybody, but, no, to actually do something notable, I'd probably be a science officer or something. I don't think that I would necessarily be a captain, although it'd be kinda cool to be a captain.
definitely would. You could be a science officer and then lead the occasional away mission, and then you get the best of
That would
both
be good, is
worlds.
yes, just never wear a red shirt. Anyway, because you might get killed off. Never mind.
Uh, uh, I think that is some excellent advice. Well, we'd like to prolong the lives of everyone on this webinar. What jump you back to Star Wars a little bit. What about in Star Wars? Is there a particular job you'd want to have in Star Wars? You want to be like a Jedi Knight or something like that?
Oh gosh. I don't think I would want to be a Jedi Knight. And there's some ways you do. Everybody wants to be on an adventure in that way, in their personal, and to be doing great good in that way. But part of the thing about Jedi Knights, uh, in the later movies that which I thought was very problematic, was that they try to get Jedi Knights to get rid of all of their relationships with their families and all of that, and that caused horrible mischief in the plot line. Um, and which great tragedy for Anakin, which I think contributed to his downfall. Um, but so I would not want to cut off the ties with my family. My family is very important to me. And so I would probably try to be a wise leader, and maybe we in some sort of civil capacity, and not and I don't think that I necessarily have the power of the force anyway, but that's okay.
I Let me ask you a quick follow-up then. If you're concerned about the ways that you know, removing family connections harm the Jedi, do you think that the same is true about people on the federal bench? Is it important to have a strong connection to your community when you're a member of the bench?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes. Well, my family is very important to me. I've been married for 36 years. I have two grown daughters and a wonderful son-in-law. But and my parents and my siblings and everybody, that's all very important. But I'm also have a very strong I have a very strong church community. I have a very strong relationships in the legal community, with my Garland Walker group and in the bar and in various FedSoc connect relationships and other judges. I've gotten to know the other judges across the country in some of my work, where I was doing ethics work, the codes of conduct work that I was doing, and in other capacities that I've been able to work on projects. And so I think relationships are so important, and friendships. And I hope that you, as a student, will foster friendships and that you will continue to keep some of your friendships from this time period. I think that would be advice I would want to give to you, Matthew, that you keep in touch with some of the friends that you've connected with in school and that sort of thing, and then also that you keep your family ties, because these things are very important and they're part of the richness of life. Um, Most jobs, although even jobs that are very that I love my job and I'm very feel blessed to be able to do it. Um, I'm very thankful for my job. But most jobs, there's someone else who can do your job at the end of the day. But these other connections and I it's part of my faith tradition and things. These connections are really so important in life. And I hope that you have a rich life that has that. And I encourage other students to cultivate connections and friendships, and with connections with mentors too. So maybe you do need you need Obi-Wan to guide you and mentor you along the way.
You know, I think we're all looking for our Obi-Wans, but we're also all looking for those people to do things with on a day-to-day basis. And you know, I think that that's some fantastic advice, and I'm very lucky that I have some fantastic friends and uh, two fantastic brothers and fantastic parents. And I think some of them might even be on here. I sent them the link, so hopefully. um, no, I I think that those are very true words. Um, I'm curious though, turning back to Star Wars a little bit. If you had to pick one character to join you on the federal bench, who would it be?
Well, I mean, I guess it would be Obi-Wan. I mean, and in fact, I'm very blessed in that I am friends with my with Judge Charles Eskridge. And I told him I might mention his name in vain, and he said it would be okay that I could mention him because he and I work on these shows together sometimes for our in of court group, and Judge Eskridge actually wrote a good portion of our Star Laws show, and then he appeared in our program as Obi-Wan. And so I am on the bench with my very own friend Obi-Wan, and it's a great privilege to have friends like Charles and like Judge Eskridge, who is a wise jurist and also a very creative person. And so,
And
yeah, so I think it'd be good to have Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan he's not impulsive and he has good, he's wise, he's thoughtful, and he's compassionate, and he has
yeah,
years of experience.
well, that is fantastic.
And
I
he
think a
sacrificed
fantastic
himself,
choice.
so he's
Yeah,
noble in that way.
no, I think Obi-Wan is a fantastic choice, and I am glad to hear that you and Judge Eskridge are so close. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about Star Laws and what exactly that is?
Sure, sure, sure. Um, the Garland or Walker American Inn of Court is an Inn of Court group in Houston, Texas, and it's one of the larger American Inn of Courts. And I encourage you that you might want to be involved in one of these. It's groups of lawyers, judges, um, and students, and we get together for dinner once a month, and then we put on a CLE program. And my group uses the term CLE program very loosely, not many PowerPoints with two or three speakers, but instead full on costume scripted programs with parody songs and sometimes even dancing, although I am generally standing on the side, just barely moving around a little bit because I'm not the greatest dancer. But so we do, and they are very rich in CLA. And we did a program called Star Loss several years ago, and it was a real treat. We got to film a little bit of it at NASA, at the
Really?
Johnson Space Center, and we had
Wow.
actual people from NASA helping us. So we were very blessed in that way. But we we it was the anniversary of the outer space treaty that year, and so we talked about actual star laws about space debris, laws about who owns space, if you it's things things falling from the ground, space things left in space. There's a lot of space debris sitting out and it can be dangerous if they've in some there's a possibility for danger. And then also the outer space treaty, and how that there are cooperative agreements. There was a rescue statute. There are FAA rules about space. So we talked about the actual laws about space, and then we sang a song from Hamilton and then a song from Les Mis uh, as part of this. And it was a mashup of Star Trek and Star Wars um, and NASA,
And
all coming together to tell the audience about actual laws of space.
and you did this as a musical? Did you dressed up in costume?
We did dress up in costume, and yes, I was wearing one of the costumes, and in fact, oh, you have a picture of me wearing one of the costumes,
Wow,
and
that's incredible.
I am a middle-aged Princess Leia, but but there nonetheless, and so it was a lot of fun. And you can see Judge Eskridge there as Obi-Wan and several other people, and there's my R2D2 that I have at home that I haven't gotten rid of. Um, and so it was just it was a fun show. And we do a show every year. We've done the laws of the sea, and we dress up, and also which also included internet piracy. We did pirates and both types of pirates, and we dress up for that. We've done show on New York Times v. Sullivan, and had parodies of Taylor Swift and her exes one year. And this year's show was on civility. It was cartoons and Mr. Rogers, but did have some moments from Wicked. So
That's
anyway, it's a lot of fun. Musical theater can really bring people together, and for good, to accomplish a common goal, and also to teach people about the law.
I'm sure. How
Oh my goodness. You're
oh
showing
wow.
more pictures. Yes, yes, this was bad. The Darth Vader showed up, and he was trying to put a Death Star on the Earth's moon. Um, but fortunately, with the help of the Enterprise, the rebels were able to go to arbitration with Darth Vader, and to get a good result, and everything, all's well that ends well. So
What exactly does our current law on the moon say about Darth Vader trying to build a Death Star there? Is
I
that something
don't think he's
permissible?
allowed to do that. I try not to give any legal opinions
Oh,
about any actual issues, but I think I can fairly, in all good conscience say Darth Vader is not allowed to build a Death Star on our moon. So sleep easy right now.
you know what? I That's good to know. I was concerned. I'll be sure if that ever happens, I'll make sure I'll file in Texas so I end up in your chambers.
Well, I would have to recuse because I've given him an opinion on
Um,
it, but so I wouldn't be able to,
no, you're right, of
but
course.
nonetheless.
Uh, um, has framing these things as musical theater, has that allowed you to reach out to potentially lawyers who might be less interested in sitting through a traditional PowerPoint? Is that a useful tool?
Yes, absolutely. I think that music is a great tool to learn things. I mean, you probably had teachers growing up who would try to teach you how to memorize the preamble or something, or some kind of thing, and using music. Music is a great way to learn, and it's good for your brain, and I think it's good for your soul too. So I think music should also be part of one's life. So if I was going to be your Jedi leader, I would say keep those relationships going, and try to incorporate some music and creativity in your life.
You know what? I think that is fantastic advice. And on that note, I will say one of the sort of biggest perhaps differences between me and some of my friends is which song we use to learn the preamble to the Constitution. Because personally, I was a Schoolhouse Rock kid, so I know the Schoolhouse Rock version of the preamble song, but apparently there are a few other ones, including one set to Mozart. So
Yes,
I
you
think
never know. Some people, well, you can like some Mozart and some rock, and it's all good. So,
yeah. I if you wouldn't mind, I think we have a video of a little bit of that, and perhaps you wouldn't mind singing a bit of that Star Laws for our audience here tonight,
okay, you'd like to hear just a little bit from the Star Laws?
if you wouldn't mind.
Well, maybe just a tiny bit. So you have to remember this is a Sunday night, and I'm not warmed up, but this would be in the May the Force song to the tune of One Day More, and revised lyrics by my good friend Charles Eskridge. Magna Carta Bill of Rights. Will these extend beyond Earth's orbit? And then tomorrow we'll discover how the rule of law can be secured. Beam me up, make it so. May the force. Okay, I've embarrassed myself in front of you and your friends, but hopefully it's for a good cause.
No, I think that was really probably the highlight of my year so far. That was a real treat. So thank you so much.
Well,
Uh,
Matthew, would you like to sing for us now then?
I would, but I think I'm feeling a little tickle in my throat. I wouldn't want to risk it. Uh, but I think I have just one more sort of set of questions left, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions from them. But we're headed into finals season, so Chief Judge Elrod, do you have any advice for all of us students out there who are getting prepared to take our finals and wrap up for the semester?
Well, I guess I would say the most important advice I have for you is quit procrastinating and watching these webinars and go study. No, no, seriously, you need a study break every once in a while. I think it's important. I'm teaching First Amendment this semester. I generally teach civil procedure, but this year I'm teaching First Amendment, and next year I'm going to teach Fed courts. I think that something students do is they just try to memorize a bunch of trees, and they don't really understand the forest. So I would say, as you're studying, make sure you understand the forest and you spend some time actually thinking about the forest and how the whole forest works. You should throw in some trees to show that you were really paying attention to the details, but you shouldn't be driven by just memorizing what the trees are. That I think that's a shortcoming that students have when they're taking their finals. And I do encourage you to, even if it's the last minute, go to the office hours of your professors. And you know, I would not spend all my time in a group study group, because I think that can make you nervous. And also they can become social things only and not really much studying going on. But spend some time though, so that you're still sharing some ideas and talking about them. But I would say that beyond how you do on any particular exams, I think it's important, as you get to the next steps in life. And I understand that you have a very interesting next year coming up where you're going to be studying at Oxford. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
Well, that's
Uh,
awesome. We're
Thank you.
doing some, is it comparative economics or something, or?
Yeah, economic history and development economics should be
Yes,
fun.
that's so interesting. But what I was going to say is, we're getting to the stage in life where you've all the good people have been, who have wanted to be good students, have have kind of done cookie cutter things, and they've done exactly what the other people have done, and everybody who wants to be the best student has always done exactly the same thing. I think you're getting, certainly in college at the stage you are, and then going into law school, you get to a place where you get to make choices, and that's and you don't have to do exactly what everybody else does. I know that whenever I was at a law firm as a young lawyer, I decided that I was going to run for judge, which is a very bad career move for someone who's trying to do well at a law firm. You don't say announce that you're running for a judge. You might say, "Oh, I've been appointed to judge," but you don't say, "I'm going to run." But I took a risk. And so I think you'll find the bigger advice I would have is that sometimes in life you will take risks, and that will be good, and those will be growth experiences regardless of whether you win or not. And I did end up getting the position, but if I hadn't, I think I learned a lot of things, and it would have propelled me to my next adventure. And so I encourage you, as you're studying and thinking after finals, think about what it is that you want to do, and not so much about what it is that everybody else is doing. So that would be my advice.
I think that is some very sage, some might even say Jedi-esque advice. um,
Well done, Matthew.
I think we could do a whole nother 45 minutes on all your other experiences, including what the decision is like to run for judge. But I do want to open it up a little bit to questions from our audience. So again, if you have any questions, you have to put them into the Q&A box in Zoom, and I will ask them from there. Um, So we've got a question on the separation of powers in the Republic's Constitution, and particularly the emergency declaration that got Chancellor Palpatine into office. Do you think that emergency powers should be allowed to override the traditional separation of powers, or is separation of powers something that is crucial even in cases of emergency?
Well, I should have guessed that someone has been spending too much time on a Reddit subgroup or something. No, I'm just kidding. To my friend who asked the question, very kind of you to ask a question. Um, I, we've dealt with emergency powers during COVID era, and we had a number of emergency cases during COVID, and we had to develop a system, make sure we had a system where we could give process in an emergency case, and where we could decide them. And we used analogies to other times in history where we had emergencies, and then the Supreme Court gave us guidance. So I think that working within the system of the powers, and the beautiful thing, the separation of powers, I think Justice Scalia, would say that that was the most important thing in the Constitution, not not the language of the Bill of Rights or something, because so many countries have bills of rights, and they mean nothing. So it's the separation of powers that makes our system good. But we saw what a great travesty happened when Emperor Palpatine came to be in great power. With Palpatine came to be in great power. I mean, it was just a disaster waiting to happen. So, but the judge has to just do his or her job and can't worry about whether it's going to help Palpatine or not. So, in the story, I wonder what that would have happened if they would have had judicial review.
I think we'll never know, but that's a great question.
No.
Uh, how about a lighthearted one? What would your baseball walk-up music be? Would it be the Imperial March, Sauron, something else? If you
Oh,
had to
that's
pick
a
a song.
great question.
I know.
I wish it would be Imperial March. Um, I have to say, I've always thought my baseball, did you know I'm a huge baseball fan?
I
I
didn't know
could
that,
I could have done
really.
this. I've been an Astro buddy since I was 5 years old. and my Astro Buddy was Bob Watson.
What's
But
an Astro Buddy?
and Go Jake Myers did some amazing things yesterday. You probably don't know this because you probably don't follow the Astros with any closeness, but he did a remarkable thing with 2 home runs and a triple and a double yesterday.
That's impressive.
But moving on, I guess I probably would go with for some good American rock music, maybe Back in Black or something like that for my. But I think
Mhm.
Imperial March would be better. I think that's a better answer to the question. So I'll have to think about my music.
You know,
What would you pick?
well, I was going to say Back in Black is quite fitting for if you're coming out in judicial
I
robes.
do wear a robe, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of yeah. I mean,
Um, I was never a good enough athlete to play baseball, but I did swim, and when I swam, I would always come out to Eye of the Tiger, which is just like
oh,
a
that's good.
classic. You
Yes,
know,
it's a
nothing.
classic. Yes, when I used to do my running every morning, that would frequently come in the mix because just when you were getting a little tired, it would kind of it even though it's kind of cheesy, it would get you going and because it's a great song.
No, exactly. There's nothing quite like that guitar intro to really like get your
Yes.
heart rate up right before you got to do something
Yes.
important.
A good
Uh,
guitar intro makes all the difference. My husband and I have been married for 36 years. Our song is Smoke on the Water, which has a great guitar riff. It's not a romance song, but that's our song.
I I am not a good guitar player by any stretch, but the first sort of chords I learned to play was actually the intro to Smoke on the Water. So
I
I
knew we had this bond across so many areas. So I'm so glad that you've agreed to do this. And I don't know how you got connected with me to do this, but I'm so glad that you did.
we should send Peter Redpath a thank you letter then because
Absolutely.
that was all entirely his doing. Let's see. Let's look at some of the other questions we have here. Um, mm, okay. I'm curious, Judge Elrod, if you could change anything about the Star Wars or Star Trek universe, what would it be that you change?
Um, I would get rid of the weirdness with the midichlorians. That's just kind of they
Mm.
go there and then they get out of there, and I don't understand why they're there. Um, that's it's no doesn't make any sense to me, and it's there's several plot points that I think are weird and odd, but that would be one. That's not even a big one though. You know what? I have one thing I do not like that they redid the music to the end of the Raiders of I mean I'm sorry of the third movie, the Return of the Jedi.
With the
Because
Ewoks?
yeah, yes, the Ewoks. I love the Ewoks. Who doesn't love the Ewoks? They have this song that goes num num da 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 dun 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 dun. Well, they decided that wasn't grand enough. And so they had to re-record a more grand ending for the movie. And so now when you see the movie, it has a grand ending instead of the num num song. But my husband and I own a VHS box set of the original release of these movies as a box set in VHS, although I don't know that we have a device to play it. And it has the Num Num song instead of the fancy ending song now that they have the orchestral song. The Num Num song really worked. So that would be my silly thing to change.
You know, I don't know that I've ever heard the Num Num song, but I think I'm gonna have to go find it somewhere because I can't think of a better way to end that movie than with
It's
a
kind
bunch
of
of
a
Ewoks dancing
fun
around.
with it. It's not a grand, uh, epic kind of ending. And so I thought it was right for the vibe of the show.
You know what? I'm gonna have to go track this down. Um, I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Oh, I've got a good one here. Who do you prefer, Jean-Luc Picard or Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Oh gosh, they're just different. Obi-Wan Kenobi has powers though. And Jean-Luc Picard does not. So, it depends on who I would be, if I would be off on an adventure, if I'd be working on in an off. I'd rather work in an office all day with Jean-Luc Picard probably, but if I'm on some adventure, it'd be fun to go with Obi-Wan.
See, I think that's the right answer because Jean-Luc Picard would probably be more fun to have a conversation with. But if I'm gonna get into trouble, that lightsaber does come in handy. Oh, well, I think I don't want to hold you over, but we really appreciate you coming out and doing this with us. We really appreciate you taking the time to answer all my questions and all the questions from the audience about Star Wars and Star Trek. We cannot thank you enough for taking the time. So thank you so much, Chief Judge Elrod.
Thank you, Matthew. It's been a delight. And again, may the force.
May the fourth be with you too. And thank you everyone for coming. Take care.